Good morning, students. Welcome to this new week. How are you today? Today we have to look at labor market. Objectives. At the end of the topic, students should be able to 1. Explain the concept of the labor force. 2. Explain the factors affecting the size of the labor force, particularly the population characteristics, age, sex, occupation, education. Lastly, the students should be able to discuss the efficiency and mobility of labor. Now, what is labor market? Like you know, we have different types of markets. So one of the markets we have is labor market. What happens in labor market? You'll be wondering. So labor market is a market where wages and other conditions of service are employed, are negotiated, and agreed upon. So like we wrote on the board, labor market can be defined as a market where wages and other conditions of employment are negotiated and determined and agreed upon. Like any other market, labor market is any arrangement or medium which brings job seekers, that's employees, and employers of labor together. It is a market where labor services are exchanged. It is a market where workers sell their labor in order to earn wages. That is labor supply. Labor market is unique in the sense that it is service we are trading here and not the human being that is trading his or her service. It should be noted that demand for labor is a derived demand because we are demanding for it not for its own sake, but for what it will give or help to produce, which gives satisfaction. So the next thing is the labor force, concept of the labor force. What is the meaning of labor force? Labor force can be defined as the total number of capable men and women who fall within the age bracket of 18 and 60 years as allowed by law, who are gainfully employed, and those who are capable and willing to work, they have no work to do in a country at a particular period. So like I said, labor force involves a particular group of people. For you to be matured in a country like Nigeria, the minimum qualification is 18 years. The minimum age is 18 years, and normally maximum of 60. So those who fall within age bracket of 18 and 60 years, we call them the labor force. So labor force refers to the employable population, that is population within the working age group who are employed, plus all those who are unemployed but actively seeking for employment. So labor force is made up of 2 categories of people, those who are already employed and those who are still seeking for job. Those who are, but they must fall within the age bracket of 18 and 60 years. It is the productive sector of the economy. They are the people that produce goods and services produced in the country. The concept of the labor force excludes young people, so young people are excluded. Those who fall within 17 years and under. Students in school are not included. Housewives who have not taken any paid jobs are excluded. Retirees and others who do not, for various reasons, take up paid employment. So having said that, having known the category of people that fall within the labor force, remember we said those who are in school, we not include them. Retirees or housewives, full-time housewives are not inclusive. So what are the factors affecting the size of a country's labor force? Those factors that will make a country's labor force either to increase or to decrease. One of the factors is the size of the country's population and the rate of its growth. The higher a country's population, all things being equal, the higher will be the size of the labor force. Number 2, the age distribution of the population. Is it skewed towards having more children or more adults? If you have more of the retirees, those who are above 60 years, and more of the children, then the labor force will be small. But if the labor force, if those who fall within the age bracket of 18 and 60 years or more, then the size of the labor force will be high. Another factor that affects the size of the labor force is for official school entry and school leaving ages. The lower the two ages, all things being equal, they had the labor force of the country and vice versa. So number 4 factor affecting the size of a country's labor force is statutory entry and retirement ages. The higher the span of the working age, the more the labor force. In Nigeria, the span for labor force is 18 to 60. If the government wants to increase the labor force, they can lower the entry ages to 16 or increase the retirement age to say 65 or 70 years. On the other hand, to reduce the labor force, it will raise the entry and or reduce the retirement age. So statutory entry age and retirement ages affect the size of a country's labor force. Again, sex distribution of the population. If you have more women in the country, the size of the labor force will be small. Why? Because many of them will either be full-time housewives, some will always go on maternity leave. So you see that many of them are at one point or the other not fully employed. But if you have more of male, the size of the country's population will be more. Also, the number of people who retire voluntarily before the official age, the more we have of this, the lower will be the size of a country's labor force and vice versa. The number of people who pursue full-time education beyond normal school age, normal school living age. If the number is high, labor force will be adversely affected. Lastly, the number of disabled persons in the country. The more we have of these people, the more people that are disabled we have in a country, the less will be the size of a country's labor force and vice versa. Any question? Okay, let's look at mobility of labor. Mobility. What does mobility mean? Mobility has to do with ability to move about with ease. So mobility of labor is the ease with which labor as a factor of production moves from one place to another or from one geographical area to another. The ease with which a person moves from one place to another is called what? Geographical mobility. While the ease with which labor moves from one occupation to another is called occupational mobility of labor. So labor is mobile. If it's easy for people to move from one place to another or change jobs from one job to another. But if labor becomes immobile, if workers cannot easily move from one geographical area to another or from one job to another. Types of mobility of labor. We have basically 3 types of mobility of labor. Number 1 is called occupational mobility of labor. This one has to do with occupation. It refers to the ease with which labor or workers move from one job to another or from one occupation to another. Occupational mobility of labor is easier. People can change jobs. It's easier for unskilled labor because it's easier for them to change from one job to another. It's easier for a cleaner to become a receptionist. But it's not easy for skilled labor, like a doctor cannot easily become a lawyer. If he wants to become a lawyer, he has to go back to school and spend so many years before he becomes a lawyer, a doctor. So that's occupational mobility of labor. The ease with which labor moves from one occupation to another. Remember I said it is easier for unskilled labor to change jobs than for skilled labor. The second type of mobility of labor is what we call geographical mobility of labor. This involves the movement of labor from one geographical area to another. This one is the people that can easily move from one geographical area to another are skilled labor. Because they are skilled, it's easier for them to move from area of scarcity to area of surplus. Before we go to industrial mobility of labor, we have two types of geographical mobility of labor. We have internal and external mobility of labor. Internal mobility of labor has to do with ease, moving internally. The ease with which labor moves from one geographical area to another within the country. But external mobility of labor has to do with movement outside the country. So the third type of mobility of labor is what we call industrial mobility of labor. This concerns the free movement of labor from one industrial setup or firm to another. Industrial mobility of labor are of two types. We have vertical mobility and horizontal mobility. Vertical mobility of labor takes the form of promotion within the same industry or place of work. For instance, a vice principal of a school could be promoted to a principal. That is what we call vertical mobility. But if the vice principal of a school moves from one school to another, still remaining a vice principal, that is what we call horizontal mobility of labor. Or an accountant who changes from one firm to another, still remaining an accountant, is an example of horizontal mobility of labor. I hope you're following, students. Now, what is the importance of mobility of labor? One, mobility of labor helps to solve the problem of unemployment. So labor moves from areas of surplus to areas of scarcity, where they are in high demand and can command higher prices. We're looking at the importance of labor. What is the importance of mobility of labor? It is easier. Yes, it helps people to move from area of surplus, where you have surplus labor, to areas of scarcity, where they can easily get good and well-paid jobs. It also helps to increase the level of production. Yes. So these are two importance of mobility of labor. Now, what are the factors affecting geographical mobility of labor? Those things that will make labor to move from one geographical area to another. One, economic and social infrastructure. Where these are available, availability of those make labor to move with ease from one place to another. If a particular place has economic and social infrastructure, it is easier for people to migrate to that place to get a good job. Language barrier is another factor affecting mobility of labor. People are not easily moved, or people are not quick to move to areas where they don't understand their language. Inability of a worker to communicate fluently and effectively in a particular language may mar movement to such an area. So you decide to stay where you are presently. So language barrier. Another factor affecting geographical mobility is unrestricted movement. When there's no restriction on movement, people can easily move from one place to another. Also, climatic condition. Labor might move from an unfavorable area to a favorable area. Climatic condition. Lastly, social and religious crisis like we have in Nigeria. We make labor to move. Labor may move to escape social or political or religious crisis. Example, the Boko Haram insurgency in the northern part of Nigeria made people to migrate from the northern Nigeria down south for security reasons. So those are some of the factors affecting mobility of geographical mobility of labor. Now, what are the limitations of mobility of labor? The limitations of mobility of labor. One, availability of economic and social infrastructure. Labor mobility is determined by the extent to which infrastructural facilities such as transportation, communication, housing are available. Poorly developed infrastructure makes labor less mobile and vice versa. So when you have economic infrastructure, people are quick to move to that area and vice versa. Immigration requirements and government policies are another problem, another factor. Immigration requirements and government policy, where you have stringent government laws barring or deterring people from movement, it is an impediment to the movement of labor. Limitations. Also, length and cost of training. If a job requires a long, costly, and specialized form of training, labor tends to be less mobile. Why? Example, a medical doctor or a lawyer. Hence, they find it difficult to change their jobs. Nevertheless, labor is highly mobile if no special natural ability is required. So if the length and cost of training is very expensive, it makes labor immobile. Like I said, if you're a medical doctor and you want to become a lawyer, you don't just wish to become a lawyer and you become a lawyer. You have to go back to school, spend some years before you become a lawyer. So if that particular job does not require any special natural ability, you can easily move. So we are looking at conditions of service in one's place of work. If the conditions of service where somebody is working is very conducive, very favorable, labor becomes immobile because nobody will want to leave such a place. But where the reverse is the case, labor becomes very mobile. Also, climatic condition. Climatic condition has to do with atmospheric condition of a particular place. So if the climatic condition of a place is favorable, workers will be encouraged to stay, thereby making labor immobile. But where there is unfavorable climatic conditions in other areas, labor becomes mobile. We have sociological factors. We have strong family ties. Strong social, family and cultural ties hinders the mobility of labor, but labor is highly mobile when the reverse is the case. What are we saying here? Because of family ties, people are hesitant changing jobs. The man wouldn't want to leave his family, or the woman wouldn't want to leave the man and the children. So the person might decide to remain where he or she is because of family ties. We are looking at factors affecting immobility of labor, those things that make labor immobile. So family ties. Also trade union activities and regulations. Sometimes trade union, their regulations hinder the movement of labor into certain occupations. We have discrimination from employers. This is one of the factors also. Sometimes employers might say they want all male. So there could be certain people could be discriminated against based on sex, based on tribe, or religion. So those discriminated against are unable to move, either from one job to another, or from one geographical area to another. Another factor is insufficient training and ability. Non-possession of sufficient ability in terms of natural intelligence, physical and mental strength, education and training prevent people from moving to more lucrative jobs. Yes, if somebody has insufficient training, it should not be easy to change jobs. If they said if you are a school start holder and they are looking for graduates, are you qualified to apply? No. So if you must get that kind of job, you go back to school. So once you don't have the training, you remain where you are, you cannot move. Lack of relevant work experience. Like in Nigeria, they will tell you they have so many years of experience before you are qualified. So one of the reasons why labor is mobile or immobile is lack of relevant working experience. Employers often state the need for some years of experience when they advertise for staff. This means that some people cannot easily move to other establishments to occupy certain positions, so they remain immobile. Any question? And the factors affecting mobility of labor and immobility of labor. Okay, let's continue. Obstacles or barriers to occupational mobility of labor. These are the things that will make labor to stay put, to remain immobile. One is cost. The cost of training and retraining may be a problem in terms of money and length of time. So because training and retraining is very expensive, many people cannot move, so they become immobile. Personal reasons. Somebody might have an opportunity of getting a job in a particular place, but for reasons best known to him, and for family ties, for the sake of the beloved ones, that person might not want to move. Also, we have employment prospects or age. sometimes in Nigeria, if you want to get a job, once you reach particular age, especially if you are above 45, it becomes near impossible to get a government job in particular. Ability or aptitude. Certain jobs require natural abilities. Natural abilities required in certain occupations may prevent those not talented from moving. Example, musicians, artists, footballers. These are natural abilities. You cannot do anything about it. If you don't have a good voice, you cannot become a musician. These are natural abilities that are given to people by nature. So one cannot do anything about that. So natural ability. We have also conditions of service can induce or discourage occupational mobility. We've talked about that. If the conditions of service where one is working is very favorable, there will be no need of moving. You remain where you are. Inadequate information about wages and related opportunities in other occupations might make one immobile. Where you are, you might be thinking that you're in the best of offices. Without knowing there are other places that are far better. Knowledge, they say, is power. So inadequate information can hinder somebody's movement. Trade unions or professional associations may inhibit such movement as they regulate entry into some professions. Like as we said, some trade unions, like for you to become a member of Nigerian Bar Association, you must be a barrister. You don't just stumble into it. So for you to become a barrister, you must have gone to school to become a member. Family and friendly ties, like we have said, because of family problems, ties to the family. Some parents, man or woman, may not want to miss them, so he will remain where he or she is. Discrimination on account of sex or race in some places may prevent mobility of labor. Yes, some people are discriminated against. Them are looking for male or female, as the case may be. Some workers prefer to remain unemployed than to take up paid jobs, which pays less and or has greater occupational risks. So some people might want to remain unemployed instead of going to do menial job or job that pays little stipend at the end of the month. So they decide to remain unemployed. Those are the factors that compel people to remain immobile. Now let's look at efficiency of labor. Efficiency of labor. It has to do with quality, quantity, skill of labor. So efficiency is the ability of a worker to accomplish a task within the shortest time period using minimum resources. It relates to its quality and skill. Efficiency of labor can be measured in terms of the level of total quantity and quality of output derivable from additional input or labor when other factors of production or inputs are held constant. So efficiency of labor, remember we say, it is the ability of a worker to accomplish a task within the shortest time period using minimum resources. So for one to become efficient in whatever he or she is doing, there must be increase in quantity of output, there must be increase in the quality of the output, and there must be increased skill for it to be said to be efficient in whatever you're doing. So what are the determinants of labor efficiency? One, education and training. When people are trained, they become efficient. Some people go to school without the school passing through them. They just go, spend 4 or 5 years in the university and come out without nothing upstairs. They cannot make one simple correct English. So education and training is very, very important. One has to go to school and mean what he or she has gone there to study. Again, we have working environment. We're looking at determinants of labor efficiency. Those things that will make labor to be efficient. Education and training, if you're well trained, you become efficient in your line of study. Working environment, if the working environment is very conducive, you're working in an air-conditioned office, not where you'll be fanning yourself every now and then. If you're always fanning yourself every now and then, it reduces labor efficiency. So, but if the working environment is very conducive, efficiency of labor increases. Another factor is the amount of incentives or remuneration given to workers. If somebody is well remunerated, if a worker is well paid, why not? He or she gives you his or her best. But if you're meagerly paid, in fact, the amount of money you receive will be commensurate to the amount of work you put in. So the higher the remuneration, the higher will be the efficiency of labor, and vice versa. Improved health facilities. If you're healthy, your productivity increases. But if you're sick, of course, sickness reduces one's productivity, one's efficiency. Another factor is health, weather, or climatic condition. Favorable weather increases labor efficiency. But unfavorable weather like harmattan, when people are very cold, the efficiency reduces. State of mind of the worker. If somebody is in a very good state of mind, somebody is happy, working happily, his efficiency is very high. But if somebody's morale is very low, somebody has something bothering him or her, the efficiency of labor, the productivity of labor reduces drastically. Job security is also one of the factors. If somebody is working in a place that has job security, he or she puts in his very best and productivity is high. But if you're just standing with one foot, anything can happen, productivity is reduced. Are we following? Having said that, let's look at another thing, which is demand for labor. Demand for labor. Who demands for labor? What is even labor? Labor as a factor of production. Who demands for labor? Is it the employer or the employee? The employee or the employer? It is the employer that demands for labor. The employer demands for labor services. Remember, we said that demand for labor is a derived demand. You're not engaging people to come and you don't want to eat them, but to come and help you to produce goods and services that give satisfaction. So demand for labor indicates the number of workers that are needed by producers to take part in productive activities. That's all it means. Number of people that are demanded by entrepreneurs or the producers to take part in productive activities. Demand for labor refers to the total number of labor or man hours employers are willing to hire at a particular wage rate and at a particular time. Factors affecting demand for labor. What are those factors that will make employers of labor to employ more people or less people? One of the factors is wage rate. The higher the wage rate, the lower will be the demand for labor, because employers are out to make profit. So they don't want to give you their best. They don't want to pay you more. Because when they increase the workers' salaries, their profits will be reduced. So for them, the higher the salary, the lower the demand for labor. But the lower the salary, the higher will be the demand for labor. Man being too selfish. So another factor affecting demand for labor is level of demand. If the demand for the output of a company is high, that company will demand for more people, more labor, to come and help in the production. Also, number of industries. The more industries we have in a country, the higher will be the demand for labor. Nature of firm. Some firms are labor intensive and others are capital intensive. Those that are capital intensive are those that use machines. When machines now take the work of human effort. So if a machine, if a firm is capital intensive, demand for labor will be low. But if it is labor intensive, there will be increase in demand for labor. Future expectation also affects demand for labor. The demand for labor will increase if producers foresee a bright future for their business. Yes, if they foresee that businesses will thrive in future, they will demand for more people to help produce goods and services. Productivity of labor also affects the demand for labor. The higher the marginal productivity of labor, the higher the demand for labor, other things being equal. If you engage the service of lazy workers, you're doomed. So, but the higher their productivity, the higher will be the demand for them. Also, the state of employment in the economy. State of employment, we can have full employment or underemployment. If a country has full employment, that means all the factors of production are fully engaged. No idle capacity. Then demand for labor will be nil. But if there's underemployment, meaning that some factors of production are lying idle, so demand for labor will increase. Supply of labor is the opposite of demand for labor. Who supplies labor? Employees, workers. They are struggling to get a job. So supply of labor is the total number of people available for employment in a country. That is the total working population or the labor force. Like we said in Nigeria, the labor force fall within the age bracket of 18 and 60. Supply of labor is the total number of capable men and women in the age bracket of labor market or the working population in a country who are willing and ready to work. That is, offer themselves for employment at any period of time and at an agreed wage rate. Yes, there are people who are not employed and that are not even willing to get employed. Factors affecting the supply of labor. They are the same as the factors affecting the size of the labor force. This has been explained earlier. So, once you go back to factors affecting the size of the labor force, they are the same thing as factors affecting supply of labor. One of those things, let me quickly run through them. The size of the country's population. The higher the size of the country's population, the higher will be the supply of labor, and vice versa. Now take down these questions. That's your assignment. Attempt these questions. 1. Define the term labor force. 2. What are the factors affecting the size of the labor force? 3. What is the efficiency of labor? 4. These 5 factors that affect the efficiency of labor force. What is mobility of labor? And finally, study the difference between different types of labor mobility. Now these are the answers. You can put them down. End of lesson.